Welcome back, everyone, to BBB Sharing. I'm Evie, Director of Ignite, Sparked by BBB. We are here in the Ignite, Sparked by BBB podcast studio again today, and I have two lovely guests from James River Behavioral Solutions, Adam and Maria.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Thank you all for joining me today.
Our pleasure.
It's been a crazy start to January for everybody.
Sure has.
It's been difficult kind of getting back into the mood with everything.
Yeah.
But tell me about you guys and where you're coming from and what you do.
Do you want to start, Adam?
Sure. We're from James River Behavioral Solutions. It's a therapeutic consultation company, which is, I guess we'll get into that a little bit later, but it's a therapeutic consultation business where we go in and help other folks to serve people with disabilities in the community.
Perfect. Awesome. So what does your company do? What does Behavioral Solutions do exactly?
Yeah, so basically we will get referrals, and those referrals, we'll look through them, but it's coming from the Community Service Board, which is available to individuals that have the Community Living Waiver or the Family and Individual Support Waiver. And you're granted that waiver typically if you have a disability, specifically intellectual or developmental. And so we'll get those referrals. They're seeking out for behavioral support. And then basically our job from there is to go in, see what's going on, figure out what's challenging, what could work better, and providing that training and support to group homes, day support, schools, parents. It can really be, anybody can be trained, which is really cool.
Now, quick side question to that. You said referrals. How do people know to become a referral to get that service?
Yeah, so I brought these with me just in case, but we have QR codes on all of our items. But basically, if you go to our website, jamesriverbehavior.com, we have a section, I think it says services, and it will say online referral form, or you can reach out to your local community service board and say, hey, I'm interested in behavioral services. Connect me with somebody such as ourselves.
Awesome. Sorry, I have to ask that because I get kind of sidetracked, and if I don't ask it, then I'll probably be like, oh, I should have asked that question later. So what made you decide to get into what you all do?
I guess I can start. Yeah. So I've been in the field for probably the last 10 years. There's different types of services in our field. So like Adam has a big background in schools. I've worked in schools as well. I've done going into people's homes, providing ABA services. And then somehow I stumbled across therapeutic consultation. And it's mostly for individuals that are like 20 years old or older, which I was never really into. I've always loved working with kids. So it was a big change for me. But I really grew to love it. I worked at another company before starting James River Behavioral Solutions, and my passion really grew, and I really wanted to start my own company and do things differently and build my team with strong staff, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
I was going to say kids and then 20-plus-year-olds, totally different dynamic.
It is.
Do you see a lot of college students?
Not college students necessarily, but that age range. I would say most of our clients are between 18 and 45 maybe. We do have children as clients, but it's we see it less often because typically individuals are on the wait list for this waiver for a long time, like really long. I got a call from a parent recently, and she said she just got off the waiver, and they had been waiting 15 years.
What?
Yeah. Which is so sad.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really long time. And these services are so desperately needed for families, group homes, day supports, like getting that help.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, my journey in the field started when I was in college. I was randomly a Spanish major, mostly because of the scheduling of classes, which wasn't, I have to admit, it's not a great way to pick a career. So I worked at a summer camp, and at the summer camp, I was a camp counselor, and one of the camps that came in was specifically for adults with disabilities. And they asked for volunteers for who wanted to work with that camp. And I was like, sure, I'll do that. And it opened my eyes to, I had a skewed vision of what people with disabilities were like. And that experience sort of opened my eyes to how joyful and how fun and just like anybody else, people with disabilities want to enjoy their lives and want to have friends and have meaningful experiences. And that sort of took off my special education and behavior analysis career. And since then, so that was, let's say, a little while ago. In that time, I've been blessed to work in lots of different places. So in schools, as Maria mentioned, and in the public and in homes and with other consulting companies to be able to help other people help transform do their services better. That's the goal. It's like a big part of therapeutic consultation is coming in next to someone else who's working hard and doing their best to deliver a service and help them get even better at what they do. And notice from an outside perspective, sort of like, oh, this is an interesting thing that you might think about, and offer suggestions and write plans for them to further enhance the service they're already delivering to other folks.
It's crazy because a while back when I first started here, I actually interviewed a woman who does something very similar but for corporations.
Oh, okay.
So she goes in and she kind of does a consultation with each individual person on the team. And she then goes to the team leader or the boss and says, this is why they're not understanding the way that you're projecting what needs to be done. Because their way of learning or evaluating their workplace is different than everybody else's.
Sure.
That's very similar. And it really helps because between the two of us, we've been in a lot of settings. So the people that we're trying to help, we've literally been in their position.
Yeah.
So I can relate to them and understand where their struggles are and what difficulties they're having without being as day-to-day involved as they are. So we get to sort of step back and say, hey, I've noticed this, that, A, B, and C. Mm-hmm. Perhaps have you considered these options? So our service is less of a direct service and more of a supporting the people who are doing direct work.
Awesome.
And I think you made like a really good point about like we've been in those positions too, because a lot of times when we come in, there's definitely skepticism from the direct support staff, and really like being able to understand like where they are, what that job is like, what the challenges are. I think definitely helps us like building that relationship with those direct support staff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I can understand why there would be a little apprehension in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So ultimately, what is your overall mission? It's a big one. It's a loaded question.
It is. Where do I want to start? Basically, the big mission is trying to provide these services or get as many people to be able to access these services and really provide the care and the detail and the individualized support to all the people that we can.
And probably not wait 15 years to get
Exactly. I'd really like to help with getting those wait lists shorter and trying to meet all the people in Virginia, and if not outside of Virginia. But, there's very rural places in Virginia, like Southwest Virginia or Eastern Virginia even has some difficulty getting this service. And I'd really like to be able to reach to all the people so that everyone is supported that wants help.
I'm from Harrisonburg, Virginia.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I can understand how it would be difficult. There's a lot of issues with, I think, school system in general, but adding on top of that, being an adult and not knowing how to work in your environment and how to access issues in your environment in a way that everybody else does is difficult enough.
Yeah.
And being a caregiver of one of those adults who services we have in Virginia for children are very different than the services we have for adults. So one day the school bus stops coming and all those services kind of disappear relatively quickly. Now, there are things in place to try and have transitions work, but being able to access those adult services and looking at someone who's had extensive school supports their whole life and now suddenly is
Gone.
20, 22 years old and still needs help, Luckily, there are lots of providers out there that are doing their best and are working very hard to provide services. There's not enough in any of the states, but in Virginia, I know there's not enough adult services providers out there. And the ones that are there, they also need help. You don't know the right thing every single time, and having another service that can come in sort of as like a ride along or as a backup can really help fine tune again what they're already doing.
Awesome. So what kind of things can you guys help with?
So we can help with a wide variety of things. Typically, like on our referral form, it's going to ask you, what are those problematic behaviors that you're facing? So some challenging behaviors could be elopement, or also known as running away, or wandering. We can also help with something like physical aggression, property destruction. It's really a wide variety. We've seen a lot of different things, but then we also are going to look at giving them new skills. So a lot of times we see a deficit with communication. So how can we build their communication? What's the best mode to utilize specifically for this individual, or addressing like hygiene or social skills? It really just, there's a wide variety. And one of the big things that we do is focus on sexuality or sexual related behaviors as well, which isn't, I think, talked about as much, but it is out there, and there's definitely a deficit there, and I would really like for us to meet that need.
Actually, I have to agree with that aspect. I think there is a deficit when it comes to that. For a country that seems to not be so heavy set on stigmatizing issues, we still tend to heavily. And I think if you're going to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk when it comes to stuff like that. So I think it's better just be upfront and have those conversations and teach those skills. And, you know, you're an adult now, so you need to know these things. Yeah. Not everybody has that parent or those parents that can help guide them in that way and say, hey, this is not what you do, or you can't do this. Sometimes parents don't have the time or the knowledge.
Uncomfortable, they just can't do the uncomfortable conversation. So trying to find a way to open that doorway between the client and their parent, and being able to introduce the topic of conversation and slowly build from there. And then eventually, you know, teaching those skills like public versus private behaviors, or the different types of relationship. It doesn't have to be specifically sexual in nature, but we also do that as well. But like starting with those foundation skills, because a lot of times most individuals that we work with don't have those, because in Virginia, at least for when I was going through school, sex ed was not taught to special ed.
Yeah.
Which is very concerning.
It is concerning. I have to agree. I think I ended up going to a private school in middle school and high school. And one of the requirements of books that we had to read was about a relationship between two individuals that were on the spectrum for autism.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So we got to learn about that side of thing. And we still had special ed kids in our classroom learning alongside us exactly what we were doing, with somebody helping them, of course. Yeah. But I did want to add to that. I'm pretty sure the ethnic and cultural backgrounds varying so much kind of play a huge part in that as well.
It certainly does. It's often a difficult conversation for anyone, regardless of if their child has a disability or not. It's not something that a lot of people are comfortable talking about. But again, as people age, they become adults, and adults come with their own sexual interests and sexual needs and desires. And when you're working with a variety of different parents and a variety of different service providers, so a team that's serving an individual might have 15 people on it, all working with them in a day program or in a group home or in another residential setting. And all of those people are bringing with them their own personal experience and their own belief systems and their own religious and spiritual connections. And all of those play into relationships, whether that's a sexual relationship or a romantic relationship or a professional relationship. So taking all that into account requires specific training. And that's one of the things that we train all of our staff on. We were just talking this morning about expanding some of the training that we're doing with our folks to be able to approach that from a culturally responsive way, and to take everyone's beliefs. But at the center of things are the individual client is at the center of everything. So bringing their beliefs and their desires to the forefront, and what kind of meaningful life can they live, whether that's talking about their job or their home life or their romantic life or their sexual life. What does that look like for them, and what do they want to have happen? And then getting the whole team on board to be able to support them in that and get them the skills they need to successfully have as meaningful and as safe and productive a life as they can.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you all not do?
Oh.
And how can you refer people to the things that they need based off of what you don't do?
Yeah, that's a really great question because we have this issue pretty frequently. So in the world of behavior, typically if an individual has a disability and they are going to get insurance-based services, it is typically called ABA services, where you might go to a clinic or the provider might come to your home, or you could also receive ABA services in the school, but that is all through insurance, so like your medical insurance plan. Whereas for us, we are through the state waiver, like the Medicaid waiver, which is completely separate from medical insurance. But the big difference between those two is in ABA, that first one I was explaining, that is more of a direct service model. So basically, you'll get assigned a registered behavior technician who will come to the house or clinic or wherever several times a week for several hours, working directly with the individual. Whereas our service, you're getting the BCBA for all of the service. We don't have any RBTs or behavior technicians, but basically, we're coming in once a week, once every 2 weeks, just for a couple of hours. And then we do a lot of office work like on our own. So writing those behavior plans, FBAs, things of that nature. So one service is direct and ours is consultative.
Okay, cool.
And there's a lot of letters that come out with every profession. BCBA is a board certified behavior analyst. So it's someone who's done coursework and training and has been supervised by an existing certified person. And then they sit and take a pretty difficult test, actually, to be able to demonstrate that they have the skills to do that. It's a master's level position. And then the state of Virginia has licensure laws that go around that to make sure that not just anybody says they are that, just like any other licensed health profession. A BCBA has to demonstrate certain competencies. And then that person, so again, as Maria was saying, our role is more consultative. So sometimes people will reach out to us and want to get referred. And what they want is someone to come in and do teaching and stay and help with showering or help with learning, specifically spending 20 hours a week working on that skill. And those services do exist. And those are usually through either a day program or through private insurance with ABA therapy or other types of therapy. Speech therapy, occupational therapy can help with those things. But specifically, therapeutic consultation helps guide those people. So it's more to help guide the direct staff rather than be the direct staff yourself. Okay, so cool. If someone's looking for 20 hours of service a week, that's not like what we do. We can help refer to those things, but that's not what we do.
Awesome. So one more time, how can people get in contact with you guys?
Yeah, so they can go to jamesriverbehavior.com. If you toggle over to the services tab, if you click that, there will be an online referral form, or they can always reach out via email at info@jamesriverbehavior.com.
Perfect. Everyone that is watching on BBB Central VA YouTube channel, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you're listening on BBB Sharing Spotify, please make sure to follow us. And of course, on social media, LinkedIn and Facebook, BBB Serving Central Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.